I, 31-year-old female, had a breakdown at my husband's family New Year's Eve and attacked his step-cousin. Now I'm ashamed to look at my in-laws. Okay, so I'm a 31-year-old female Colombian married to a 40-year-old male. My husband is British and his stepfather is a Moroccan man. We live in Colombia, but every year we and our kids travel to the UK to spend New Year's Eve with his family. I have been with my husband for nearly 8 years. He was raised by his stepfather and is the only father he ever knew. My father-in-law is a great man with a big family, but since I started dating my significant other, his step-cousin, let's call her Amira, has been nothing but hostile and cruel. She is always antagonizing me, talking about how I'm with my husband because he is from a superior race, how he is with me only because of my money, and calling me various racial slurs. I'm a mix of Turkish, Brazilian, and Colombian heritage. She likes to point out her and his pure blood. For years, everyone in the family has fought with her about it. Sadly, my in-laws are her guardians since she has no parents, so I have to meet her every time we see them. About 5 years ago, after years of fighting, I was formally diagnosed with autism and bipolar disorder. The last one is a family thing. Since then, I've been using specific medication along with the therapy I already had. With both my disorders, I always had some triggers. Too many people, fireworks, only for an extended period, certain foods and fabrics, and loud, scratchy sounds. I have adapted myself to many things and can navigate well. Since the day we arrived, however, Amira has been extremely hostile. My sister-in-law said that she recently ended a relationship and is aggressive towards everyone, but it's been extreme. She accidentally broke my favorite perfume, threatened to cut my daughter's hair when she wouldn't let Amira touch it, and constantly played tricks on my eldest son. My husband, mother-in-law, and father-in-law spoke to her several times. On the 31st, as usual, my in-laws threw a big party. I wore a white dress matching my family. We were enjoying ourselves until my sister-in-law realized that Amira was drunk well before midnight. She looked at me and started saying that she couldn't believe that her cousin had married a Latin intimacy worker, that I was a vulgar woman, that he was only with me for my money, and that he should leave me and be with a real woman, that it was a disgrace for the family that he had children with an inferior race. I burst into tears and she started laughing. I don't know what came over me, but I've put up with her abuse for years. And she talked about my children. I snapped. I hit her, and my husband and father-in-law had to separate us. I ran to my room and locked myself in. I've been here ever since, but I can't even look at my children. I feel awful. I'm not a bad person, but I exploded in front of everyone. How do I get over it? Edit. I wanted to clarify some things. First, my husband did defend me, and his parents and sister also. Our yearly vacation to his family's country is something that is important to me too. Amira's case is a bit more complicated. She was orphaned early, and her mother sent her to my father-in-law. She was always a very problematic girl. When they were kids, she burned my sister-in-law with hot milk out of jealousy. She tried to harm herself many times and has attachment issues. I do believe she likes my husband, or at least what he represents, stability and money, a paternal figure also. She never was this constant in offending me, but I think her breakup made her more snappy and dangerous. She also has a drinking problem. When she started, my mother-in-law took her to another room and reprimanded her. But she came back later and then I snapped. I punched her and shoved her on the floor. Edit 2. I felt ashamed because in all those years, no one, not even my husband, saw me snap. When I was a teenager, I let my anger out sometimes and had very intense reactions. Today I know it was my BPD, bipolar disorder. Also, even today I'm afraid of any big emotion, too much anger or happiness or sadness. I'm scared because I don't know if I will know how to deal with those feelings. So, for me to finally snap was something serious. She could talk about me all she wants. I know how to defend myself. But she came after my children. As for my family, I finally got out of my bedroom. I've been refusing to talk to anyone, but now I told my hubby that my children and I are going home. He says he will come too. My father-in-law asked for a family reunion. Edit 3. My husband is looking for tickets to Bogota. Apparently we won't be able to get them until tomorrow or Friday, but until then we're staying in a hotel. I haven't seen Amira yet. and God knows it's for the best. I made him read all your comments, especially about the lack of action. He was very disappointed in himself. It was an admission of guilt, and he sees how he failed me and our family. Our children are 5 and 3, and our little girl told him how Aunt Amira said she was going to cut her hair because ugly girls don't deserve to have long hair. My daughter has blonde hair like my mom, very straight and long. My son told us that she said my husband was leaving, and she was going to throw them both out. God knows, if they'd told me that before, that woman wouldn't be breathing. We talked for a long time. I set my limits. We're going home on the first flight. We'll stay in a hotel until then. I don't want to see his cousin ever again. I won't apologize, and I refuse to have contact and let my children have contact with my in-laws if Amira continues to be treated like a child without limits. Update. My family and I are in a hotel. Tomorrow we're going to Bogota. Last night we had a family reunion. When Amira calmed down, my in-laws talked to her. Again, she repeated the discriminatory statements, and she said that I was just as flawed as she is, but that life had treated me well and given me everything on a silver platter. Amira also said that my husband shouldn't have married me, nor should he have had children, because it was obvious that they would be like me. My mother-in-law then asked who he should have married. She said that if he wanted to rescue someone so badly, it could have been her. She would have appreciated the help. Back at the meeting, a few points were raised. My children and I will preserve ourselves. If Amira stays in the house, we won't come, because now she's attacked 2 defenseless children, and I can't promise that I'll protect myself if she does it again. At this point, my in-laws have told me that they have already started the process to have Amira reevaluated and possibly hospitalized. My sister-in-law has been collecting evidence of her behavior, and according to the therapist, she has a good chance of becoming a patient in a sanatorium. But the process could take up to 2 months. It will be a good private institution with excellent staff. When she is discharged, the plan is to send her to live in Morocco with her paternal aunt and her husband. They live in a rural area, can afford it, and have no children. Amira will no longer have contact with England when she goes to live there. Unfortunately, even though they raised her, they think that a sudden break in contact will be less painful. My husband and I also talked. I told him how much I resented the fact that he no longer protected me. He apologized again. He said that, like everyone else, he ended up being too lenient with his cousin. But he wants to make amends. He said that, like everyone else, he ended up being too lenient with his cousin. But he wants to make amends. The whole family is going to go through counseling, and I'm going to find a professional for him in Colombia too. I'm also going to find out about couples counseling and a child therapist for my children. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. First of all, you are not at fault, by a very long mile. You have been a lot more graceful handling this than any vile discriminatory deserved. Secondly, it was your husband's responsibility to stand up and step in front of you when his cousin started spewing such discriminatory filth. He didn't. Your in-laws let their ward insult their daughter-in-law for years. These are the people that ought to be ashamed, for they have much to answer for. You deserve better. Comment 2. Has your husband gathered the kids and your things to take you to a hotel? If not, you married a very weak and sad man. The first time you went to visit and she insulted you, he should have established a set of boundaries with her and your in-laws. This is not your battle. She is his family, and you are not being protected. You were justified in defending yourself and your children. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments and advice on my last post. It's been a wild week, and I've got some updates for you. So, we're currently in a hotel, and tomorrow we're heading back to Bogota. After the incident at the New Year's Eve party, my husband and I decided it was best to leave his family's house. We needed space, especially after Amira's outburst and the way she targeted our kids. It's been tough, but we're managing. Last night we had a family meeting. It was tense, to say the least. Amira had sobered up, and my in-laws sat her down for a serious talk. Despite the calm setting, she doubled down on her hurtful comments. She even had the nerve to say that my husband made a mistake by marrying me and having kids with me, implying that our children would inherit my flaws. The audacity of her words was shocking, but what came next was even more jaw-dropping. When my mother-in-law asked who my husband should have married instead, Amira suggested herself. She claimed that she would have been grateful for the help, implying that she wanted to be rescued by my husband. It was a moment that left everyone speechless. During the meeting, we laid down some ground rules. My kids and I will not be around if Amira is in the house. Her recent behavior, especially towards my children, is unacceptable. I can't risk another confrontation. My in-laws understand and support our decision. They revealed that they've begun the process to have Amira reevaluated for hospitalization. My sister-in-law has been documenting her behavior, and it seems there's a strong case for her to receive intensive care. The plan is to send Amira to a private sanatorium with a good reputation and caring staff. After her treatment, she'll move to Morocco to live with her paternal aunt and her husband. They've agreed to take her in, and since they have no children and live in a rural area, they can provide the environment she needs. This means Amira will be cut off from England, which, according to my in-laws, might be less painful if it's done abruptly. My husband and I had a heart-to-heart as well. I expressed my resentment towards him for not standing up for me. He apologized profusely, admitting that he had been too lenient with Amira. He's committed to making things right. We've decided that our entire family will undergo counseling, and we're looking for a therapist for him in Colombia. We're also considering couples counseling and finding a child therapist for our kids. I went out of my way for her, but when she gave my necklace to her ex and he ended up in the hospital, karma's a bitch, and I just smiled. We met the other day and she said she wasn't feeling great, so I bought her food, played the guitar for her, helped her do her taxes, and gave her a massage. After that, we got in my car to drop her off. During the car ride, I suggested that she could play some music that she liked for the car ride since that cheers her up sometimes. Things seem to be fine so far, and then we start talking about a particular producer. She then excitedly says she wants to play me a song from a particular artist whose music I can't stand, and she knows this. I didn't want to rain on her parade, so I let her play that song. She then says she wants to play another song from the same artist. Even though my ears are bleeding and it is an extremely uncomfortable experience for me, I let her finish the song. Then, as she continues to the next song from the same artist, I tell her that it is difficult for me to listen to the music and that it really isn't my cup of tea. I ask her if she could play any other song that she likes. She then starts sulking, and after a while I ask her what the matter is. She tells me she wanted to play that song and asked me why I couldn't just let her play it. I told her that I had let her play the songs she wanted through the whole car ride and 2 songs from the artist I don't like, and that it would be nice if she could compromise and play something that we both would enjoy. I tell her I have nothing against the artist or her listening to them, but it is just not my cup of tea, and that it is a pretty uncomfortable experience to listen to music you dislike. She knows this feeling because anytime I try to play songs that I like, even accidentally, she insists we turn it off because it's jarring to her ears. I pointed out to her that the whole evening I've been catering to her needs, and the least she could do is be considerate and grateful and compromise here. Although I didn't say it out loud, I felt this was a weird hill to die on and seemed like she was throwing a tantrum instead of being reasonable. At this point, she snapped back, asking if she should grovel because of the things I did for her. I then told her that her response was pretty ungrateful, and she is entitled if she thinks people exist to cater to her needs and her needs alone. At this point, she took offense at the fact that I called her entitled and said a few insulting words about a recent traumatic experience that I had opened up to her about. It has been about 2 days now that I haven't spoken to her, and I am still in shock that someone could be so cold-hearted and aim to hurt someone like that. I feel like I can't bring myself to speak to her at all, and have been alternating between disappointment, sadness, feelings of betrayal, and am in a dark place, reliving the traumatic experiences. My gut tells me I should break up with her and not go through what I perceive to be emotional abuse, but I also feel guilty for calling her entitled. I am pretty spun around and was hoping for some perspective. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I played guitar for her means I made her listen to me practice. If you made her listen to you play, then you should be made to listen to her bad music too. Comment 2. Using your trauma against you isn't cool at all, but don't ask her to play music that cheers her up and then say, "Oh no, that's not my cup of tea." You both need to grow up. Now, for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been a week since my last post, and boy do I have an update for you. Remember the girl I was dating? The one who got upset over the music in the car? Well, things escalated quickly after that. So, after the whole music debacle, I took some time to cool off. I thought maybe I was too harsh calling her entitled, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that she had crossed a line by bringing up my past trauma. It was a low blow, and it kept replaying in my mind. A couple of days went by with radio silence between us. I was torn between wanting to fix things and feeling like maybe this was a sign that our relationship wasn't as solid as I thought. I mean, we had been through a lot together. She was there for me when my dog passed away, and I supported her through her job loss last year. We had history, and it wasn't easy to just throw that away. But then, out of the blue, she texted me. She wanted to talk. I agreed, thinking maybe we could sort things out. We met at our usual spot, the little park bench where we had our first kiss. It felt like a lifetime ago. She started off by apologizing for her words, but then she said something that made my jaw drop. She admitted that she had been talking to her ex behind my back. She said she was confused about her feelings and that she didn't mean to hurt me. I was stunned. All this time while I was playing the guitar for her, helping her with taxes, and trying to be there for her, she was rekindling an old flame. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. The confrontation was intense. I asked her how long it had been going on, and she confessed it started shortly after we had celebrated our 1-year anniversary. That night, we had gone to our favorite restaurant, and I had given her a necklace that belonged to my grandmother. It was supposed to be a symbol of my commitment to her. The more she talked, the angrier I got. I remembered all the times she would get mysterious texts and brush them off as nothing. It all made sense now. I felt like a fool for not seeing the signs earlier. I told her that this was it. I couldn't be with someone who didn't respect me or our relationship. She started crying, saying she didn't want to lose me, but I had made up my mind. I walked away from her, from us, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Now, here's where the subtle justice comes in. Remember the necklace I gave her? Well, it turns out that her ex is allergic to the metal it's made of. She had given it to him as a token of their rekindled romance, not knowing about his allergy. He had a pretty bad reaction and had to go to the hospital. I found out through a mutual friend who thought the whole situation was ironic. I'm not one to wish ill on anyone, but I couldn't help but feel like karma had worked its magic in its own twisted way. I caught my long-distance BF cheating, so I blocked him, but when he tried to apologize, I learned the sickening truth. Therapy never felt so good. My boyfriend and I have been dating for about 3 years. We've been long-distance for 2. We've recently been discussing marriage. Before we started dating, he was very promiscuous. He was single then, and when we started dating, he told me that was over with. And while he was promiscuous as a single man, he had never cheated in any relationships he had been in. We started off great, and he was very transparent about who he was meeting and why, and all the other details when he went out. And trust grew over time, such that I stopped needing these details. Over the past year, things have become incredibly difficult for us, being long distance. There have been lots of arguments and fights over small things, and sometimes big things. And it just seemed like we have been moving from argument to argument. Because we figured that distance was the problem, I started flying in to visit him more often, so we could at least spend time together. I've never felt the urge to check his phone, but since I started visiting in February this year, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something I didn't know. So I started checking his phone. At first, it was flirty messages to other girls on Snapchat, and he allegedly had exchanged some inappropriate messages with a very close female friend of his. but they were all gone because Snapchat. The messages I did see from my perspective were bad because I would never send those kind of messages out knowing I was in a relationship. We talked about it and I let it go. He apologized and explained that the messages meant nothing. Everybody he spoke to knew about me and that he loves me, and yes, they were inappropriate, but it's nothing. I know this is long, but I really need advice, and I'll try to make it shorter. Every visit, there was something on his phone. I'm a very private person, and I've tried to explain protecting your partner, and I found that when we fought, he would send screenshots of our messages to multiple people and would be talking about me in very dismissive ways. I also found out that he was telling people private information about our intimacy life and other things I've begged him to keep private. This last trip, I found out that he's been trying to reach out to his ex, who blocked him. He follows her on his burner account and likes all her tweets, and has been trying to get her to accept gifts from him anonymously. He also told 2 of his close friends that he regrets being in a relationship with me and hoped things worked out with her. He's also been flirting with his longtime friend with whom he has one of those "if we're not married by 30" pacts. He's also been telling people, his male friends, that he's single. It's a bunch of other things that I've forgotten now. But we spoke about everything, he apologized, and things have been fine. He's communicated to various people that he's unhappy. He was asking me why I didn't trust him, and why I kept looking through his phone. One time, after I found a particularly hurtful message, he told me that he hopes that I found what I was looking for. Another day, he made a joke about how forgiving I was and I was going to leave, but he apologized profusely and said that he stopped making the joke halfway through and hoped that counted for something. He said he stopped because he knew it was inappropriate, and I eventually forgave him. Long story short, I found everything there was to find on his phone, and I knew there was nothing else. I randomly decided to pick up his iPad on Christmas morning and found out that he had been cheating. He cheated just before I came to visit on this trip, and he was texting the girl to let her know he missed eating her out and other things repeatedly while I was in the house with him. I'll attach screenshots if I can. We were supposed to spend January together, him coming to visit me, and he was telling her they would see in February after he came to see me. I took the pictures of the texts and confronted him on Christmas morning. He immediately deleted the chat and has been begging and saying that he was going to tell me and that it was a mistake and it was one time, and he got texts from the girl to corroborate that it was one time. I packed my stuff to leave, and he followed me until we almost made a scene in the middle of a thankfully empty street. He's been begging since, and I believe now that it was one time, but I don't believe much of what else he's saying. I already miss him, but I don't want to be a fool. All these things are a pattern to me that shows that he doesn't care about me, and he's been fighting tooth and nail for me not to call things quits, even though I already have, or to at least give him a chance to fix things. For context, my trip this time was for 6 weeks. He slept with her the Monday of the week I traveled. I traveled on Saturday that week, November 18th. And he's been texting her since then, when I was in the house. This trip was for us to reconnect and fix things, and I've really given it my everything. I thought everything was good. I don't know what to do. Should I give him another chance? Am I silly for thinking that? Or should I just cut my losses and move on? Update, thanks everyone for your comments. I went back to get the last of my stuff from his apartment and have blocked him. Unfortunately, I can't change my return ticket, but I'm staying somewhere else, and he doesn't know where I am. I'll test for STIs once I get back home, which is a few days away. I honestly already knew what a lot of you are saying. I guess I just needed support, and to make sure I was making the right decision by leaving. Thanks so much. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I cannot believe there are actual functioning human adults that put up with this, let alone ask if they should forgive. Like, are you a doormat? Do you have any self-respect at all? Remove all contact, block his social media, and remind yourself every time you have a weak moment that he was trying to have intimacy relationships with his ex, and actually having intimacy relations with another woman while you were thinking about spending Christmas together. New Year, New You. Happy 2024. Comment 2. Please never speak to this disrespectful, foul individual again. He does not deserve you. Also, spend some time exploring why you let this man treat you so disrespectfully for so long. Therapy or journaling, if therapy isn't feasible. I wish you the best. I'm sorry you're going through this. Merry Christmas. Now, for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been 3 months since my last post, and boy do I have an update for you. I wish I could say things got better, but they took a turn for the worse, and I'm still reeling from the heartbreak. After I left my boyfriend's place, I was a mess. I thought I had seen the worst of it, but I was wrong. I stayed at a friend's place, trying to piece myself back together. I had blocked him on everything, but he found ways to reach out. He sent emails, letters, even had flowers delivered with notes begging for forgiveness. I won't lie, part of me wanted to believe he could change. But I couldn't forget the betrayal. Remember how I mentioned he had a "if we're not married by 30" pact with a longtime friend? Well, turns out she wasn't just a friend. I found out from a mutual acquaintance that they had been more than friends for a while. They had a secret rendezvous the week before I arrived for my last visit. The same week he cheated with another girl. My heart sank. I felt like a fool for ever trusting him. I confronted him about it over the phone, and he couldn't deny it. He tried to explain it away as a moment of weakness, but I wasn't having any of it. I hung up and cried for hours. It felt like every time I started to heal, he found a new way to cut me open. But that wasn't the end of it. A few weeks later, I got a call from his sister. She was always kind to me, and we had become close. She told me she was sorry for what her brother had done, and that she had something important to tell me. My ex had been planning to propose to me on our 3-year anniversary. He had the ring and everything, but he got cold feet and started spiraling, which led to his cheating. I didn't know whether to be angry or heartbroken. The thought that he wanted to marry me while betraying me was too much to handle. I also found out more about his past. Before we dated, he had a pattern of self-sabotage. Whenever things got serious with a girl, he'd find a way to mess it up. He never told me this, but his sister did. It made me realize that maybe our relationship was doomed from the start. Despite everything, I missed him. I missed the good times, the laughs, and the connection we had. But I couldn't let myself go back to that. I deserved better. I started going to therapy to work through my feelings and to understand why I stayed as long as I did. Then, just when I thought I could move on, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was him. He had gotten a new phone just to contact me. He said he was in therapy too, working on his issues, and he wanted to show me he could be the man I deserved. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I had to stay strong. Last week, I ran into one of our mutual friends. She told me he had been asking about me, trying to find out where I was staying. He had told her he was lost without me and that he'd do anything to make it right. I felt a pang of sadness, but I knew I couldn't go back to that chaos. I've been focusing on myself, my work, and rebuilding my life without him. It's been hard, but I'm getting there. I've learned a lot about myself and what I want in a relationship. I've also learned that sometimes love isn't enough to fix everything. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.